this first guy, David Bailey, who transferred in from Stanford, he wasn't even really a part of the December transfer portal class where we got all the other defensive transfers that came in. He was a guy that came in the spring. Stanford, they had their head coach fired after some different stuff that happened up there, and David Bailey entered in the transfer portal, and this guy is absolutely elite. I mean, he ranked among all edge rushers last year, sixth in the whole entire country, and his pass rushing grade of 93.2 was the highest of any player in the whole entire country. So this guy is absolutely elite, and he came with a hefty price tag, but he's going to be absolutely worth every single penny. When you're pairing him with the other guys that we got on the defensive line, especially on the opposite side, who will be rushing the quarterback in Romello Hyatt, who is going to be a phenomenal player for us as well. And David is going to be our pass rushing specialist. He didn't have the highest running defensive grade last year, but I think a lot of that had to do with the part that Stanford really wasn't that talented last year, and they could just run away from him, or they could double team him in runs, and whenever anyone was playing Stanford, they didn't really have to worry about anyone else on that defense. So him coming here and having most of the time not being able to be double teamed because of our front seven is going to be so talented, I think it's going to be absolutely outstanding to see. And then also the other transfer I wanted to talk about, we've touched on him a few times already today, but it's Bryce Pollock coming in from Mississippi State. He was an SEC guy, absolutely phenomenal year last year. He had an 80.1 defensive grade that ranked among all SEC corners 8th. So that just shows to the level of talent that he has. And he also, like I touched on earlier, had a 77.3 ranked rush defense as a corner. So he's extremely good coming in the run, and he's also a really great corner. And I think one of the best stats about him is that in the last 6 games of the year for Mississippi State, he was only targeted 20 times and only had 7 receptions on him for 90 yards. So basically, he was only giving up 1 catch a game for 15 yards. That's elite cornerback play. I mean, you really can't get much better than that. And that was in the SEC with some of the best receivers and best quarterbacks in the whole entire country. And if you look at his statistics, he doesn't have the most interceptions or pass breakups, but in my opinion, that doesn't establish what a great corner is. A great corner a lot of the times isn't getting targeted a lot because they're locking down their whole entire side of the field. So if you're wanting to look at, he's not a big interception guy, and he might not be a great corner, I don't see it that way at all. Based off of his statistics in the last 6 games of last year, and based off of every other statistic that he had last year, being on a Mississippi State team that was not great at all either, and had a poor record in the SEC, but he was still a very bright spot on that defense. I think he's flew under the radar of a lot of defensive transfers that have happened this whole entire offseason in the whole entire country, and I think he can be a great cornerback 1 for us, and I think he's going to have a really productive. Darian Grant, he's a developmental piece. I really love just the vision that they've had, not just for this season, but for future seasons as well. And you've seen it in every recruiting aspect, really in the past year, and maybe he is a guy, maybe if you guys get injured and he has to step in this year and get some snaps, but taking a flyer on a guy where we can just develop him, he can get all the practice snaps he needs with, especially against our receiving core, which I think is one of the more talented receiving cores in the whole entire country, and then learning from guys like Bryce Pollock and Cole Wisniewski and all the guys that we've brought in that are a little bit older. I think that's just such a great plan for the future of this secondary, because too many times in the past few seasons we've seen our secondary get beat up with injuries, and it's just like, oh man, like we're having to trot out guys that really aren't that experienced. So being able to learn from guys who are experienced, where he can take it all in if he does have to step on the field, I think he can make some great plays. And also touching on Cole Wisniewski like you did, he's kind of an anomaly as well. We talked about Reggie Virgil last week, kind of being an anomaly, being a really tall guy, but also being a deep threat. Cole Wisniewski he's almost 6'5", and he's playing safety, but he can roam back there. He's not a slow guy, and broke the FCS record in interceptions while also having 92 tackles. It just speaks to the level of play, and he's just an anomaly basically back there. And I think bringing him in, being the brains back there, you want your safeties to know everything that's going on with every piece of your defense. They're seen kind of as the quarterback of the defense, and having a guy that has been an All-American, having him back there, I think is going to be so key for this season for our defense, and I'm really excited to see what he does back there at safety.
And we can go either way here. I'm going to let you start this segment by giving us, just a bold prediction for the season.
Yeah, I got a couple, and I really do, just based off of everything we've talked about, I really do think that this defense is going to be the best in the whole entire Big 12 statistically, and I think that we're also going to be ranked in the top 25 nationally as a defense. And then my really bold prediction is I think we're going to be top 10 in the country in sacks and top 10 in the country in creating turnovers as well. So
yeah,
playoff, if we do have as good of a defense as we've talked about, when you get in those games, and especially if we're hosting a playoff game here, and maybe we play an SEC team that was third or fourth in their conference, and maybe they're like a 12 seed or 11 seed, if we have a defense that's as good as we've talked about, those are the type of games where we can be in the game for the whole time because our defense has shut down their offense, and we can quote unquote get an upset in a playoff game and advance. And whenever you start advancing through each round, there's no telling what can happen. It's kind of like March Madness-esque. We almost saw it last year with Arizona State almost upsetting Texas. And if you get into the tournament, if you have as good of a defense as we think we're going to have this year, paired with as good of an offense that we talked about last week that we're going to have, I think there's no reason why this team can't go on a run and compete with any single team in the whole entire country of our defense next year. I think you could pick so many guys, but I think the anchor up front, I think Lee Hunter is going to be one of the MVPs of this defense, and obviously I think Jacob Rodriguez is going to be the MVP of the defense. I mean, this guy, you see all the preseason hype, which is completely deserved. He's had such an amazing career so far already at Texas Tech. For him to come back for his last season, I think the All-American hype, I think it's obviously it's given, and I think he's going to play up to that ability alongside guys like David Bailey and Lee Hunter. And then for this season, I think with this defense, when you're talking about record predictions and stuff, when your defense is as talented as the one that we think we're going to have this year, it can keep you in games. Games that when your offense might be struggling and you might sneak out a win that's 17-14 or something like that because your defense was performing so well where it keeps you in these low-scoring games. And I think, speaking on the defense with our schedule, I think we will be in the 10-2, 11-1 range. I think we might slip up. We talked a little bit about it last week, but taking your defense travels. They always say defense travels. I think it's got to travel to places like at Utah. I think it's got to travel to a place like Arizona State, Kansas State. Those are really, really tough road games. And I think because our defense is going to be so good, I think we're going to be able to pull out most of those road games. We might slip up, like I said, 10-2, 11-1. But besides that, I think our defense is going to be really, really successful this year. And I'm really excited to see how they perform.
Yeah, I totally agree with